they wanted me to just pay 10 cents on the dollar. Now they'll take 5 cents on the dollar, but I've spent a lot of money. I'm never paying them. I will never pay them one penny. I will fight until I go broke because they're wrong.
Welcome to The Defense Never Rests with Morgan and Akins, your monthly dose of uncommon sense about all things legal and some that are not.
Welcome, everybody, to The Defense Never Rests. I am your host, Trisha Baxter, and today we have a special guest. This episode is all about picking the brain of somebody who has lived and breathed insurance for 25 years. Before I get to my guest, I just want to say, if you like what we're doing and you want to help us out, subscribe to the podcast on whatever channel you're using. Give us a rating, a like, a written rating, a review, I should say. We're also on YouTube channel, The Legal Navigator. Hit us up there. Anything you can do supports, we appreciate that. So without further ado, today's guest is the CEO and Chairman of Prime Insurance, Rick Lindsay. Rick, hey, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Well, thanks for coming on. Let's get right into it. You've been running this company for 25 years. How did you first get into insurance?
In 1979, I started working in my dad's managing general agency. We had 11 Western states and probably about 20 markets, Western World, Great Southwest, Carolina Casualty, Canal. And, at the time, MGAs focused on excess and surplus lines, the stuff that the admitted carriers wouldn't write because it was too risky or, just not in their appetite box. So I learned, the MGA business, and then he sold that in 81, and I started an agency specializing in recreation, outfitters and guides, skating rinks, and at the time in 85, 86, Congress passed the Risk Retention Act. And recreation was the target of lawyers at that time. I remember I was told release forms are no good in California. So I took a case to the Supreme Court in California called Saines versus Whitewater Voyages, where the Supreme Court upheld the release form and proved every lawyer I've talked to in California wrong. And
that's probably a good feeling.
Yeah, it's, it's not that release forms are always going to work, but they're definitely a tool that, if you're in the recreational business and you're trying to defend yourself and it's an assumption of the risk case, it's very helpful. Even if you don't win on summary judgment, it's still evidence for the jury.
So fast forward to what made you start Prime Insurance?
Well, during that time of writing, under the Risk Retention Act, as the market got softer, I started to feel that, the Risk Retention Act was like a temporary solution or not really, the way you want to be in the insurance business if you want to take the world on. It's a nice little corner where you can, do some stuff. But, I knew at that point, I spend a majority of my time talking to underwriters about how to approach the risk and, how to have a strategy, not just a rating, or, how to be the cheapest. And I spent the other half of my time arguing with lawyers about, this is $1 million claim, we should just pay our limit. And, we had a quadriplegic case in Colorado, and, it was a sad case. Guy dove into the river. The one thing that stood out in my mind during that case was during one of the mediations, the insurance people looked around and they said, should have let him die. It would have been cheaper. And, I've been representing these outfitters and guides during what I call the Wild West in their infancy. And you're promoting safety and training and the right equipment. And, luckily, this young man was on a trip where the guides trained firemen in swiftwater rescue. So had he been on any other river trip, he probably would have died. But he was lucky enough to be with the best. So they saved his life. And, the attitude was, you just got to pay. And I'm like, that's not right, right? This kid And during depositions and everything, it got better and better for us. You know, he was a lifeguard. He'd been trained himself not to dive into bodies of water. And, you know, there was just all kinds of reasons, including that every morning they had a safety talk and talked about not diving into the river. And he stood up and defiantly looked at the guides and the teachers and said, I'm doing a swan dive. You know, he's a quadriplegic. So what made that case even more difficult was he was adopted, and his dad just happened to be a federal court judge.
Oh, yikes.
It was kind of hard to find a lawyer to want to do it. So I remember going to the settlement conference with the lawyer from New York for the insurance company, and he was there to pay the $1 million. And, you know, I was shooting for something less than that. And so ultimately we settled it for $300,000. And this lawyer from New York was, you know, calling the president of the company, skipping down the sidewalk, you know, saying how he settled a quad case for $300,000. And, you know, as normal, I'm sitting there thinking, you know, you'd have paid the $1 million, right? And without him, I think I could have done better than the 300. You know, recently we had a claim in Naples, Florida with a trash truck where motorcycle ran right into the back of it. He's a quadriplegic, and they sue, claiming that the mud flap came flying off the truck. And, you know, I was ready to go to trial for 40 grand. And, you know, then the insured starts telling me he wants to settle the claim because he's getting scared, bad faith, he could lose his business. And, you know, he had a claim the year before with AIG. And when you ask him about it, he says, you know, they shouldn't have paid that claim. And that's why I'm in trouble now. And, you know, I remember pointing that out to him, and I says, look, you know, we're ready to go to trial for 40 grand. Just relax, right? Focus on the fact that their story, the mud flap didn't come flying off. He ran into your truck, and unfortunately he's a quadriplegic, but, you know, let's not panic. So, you know, within another 3 months, the plaintiff's attorney called up and dropped the case with prejudice, never to be filed again for zero.
Wow. That's not a result you see a lot. So good for you.
Well, and the other part of that story is being able to get ready for trial and not be taken advantage of by a TPA who runs up a $200,000 bill and then tells you got to pay the limit anyway. And that, you know, I believe that the majority of the time that claim would have been reserved at $1 million. And when the policy limit demand came in, you'd have been talking about the settlement of the limit plus whatever had been spent. So, you know, our job as insurance companies is to be expert at resolving the claims, whether it's, you know, at fault or not at fault. And, you know, these business people, whether they're running a helicopter ski business or a trucking business or whatever, you know, it's like a horse. When you buy a horse, right? When you own a business, the money comes in the mouth. With a horse, you put food in the mouth. What's coming out? Somebody's got to be expert at dealing with that. You can't just outsource that stuff, right? It's got to be a plan that the insured is intimately involved in, and the insurance company. And, you know, in some cases, our insurers have really great attorneys who are helpful and really great on-staff people. And in other cases, you know, they don't so much. And those are the decisions as an underwriter we take into account in underwriting that I don't believe anybody else does. You know, what's the maturity level or really the naivety of an insured who wants to settle every claim, whether they're at fault or not, right? To me, the legal system is the best legal system in the world, but you can't be naive or afraid of it, and your focus can't be saving money when you want to win. When I win, I spend a lot more money than people think I should, and that's what they always tell me. I was just in this case, and the attorney fees are getting up there, and I think I'm going to win. You know, the lawyers are always nervous. And so, you know, the lawyers started talking about capping the legal fees so that neither of us get really hurt at the end of the day. And I told my lawyers, I says, I'm not doing that. If I lose, I'm happy to pay their attorney fees. And I want them to pay all mine when I win.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, when you diffuse things like that, this high-low stuff on these big cases, that type of stuff, when you're right, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
And you and I have met once before, and I remember walking away from our talk with that you have that mindset when you go to litigation, that it's not gonna always be a business decision. It's gonna be what is right for the case, based on the facts and the evidence. Has that always been the case for you when you started Prime all the way up until today, or have you ever taken a different approach?
Well, certainly as you run a business and you do things, I tell people that say I'm crazy, I say, you know how I know I'm not crazy? Because I wonder if I'm crazy. Right? I think crazy people never wonder, am I the crazy one? They're thinking they're not. So, to me, I've certainly doubted myself and been, encouraged to not follow my gut, because that's bad business. And I am more convinced than ever that they're wrong and I'm right. My job is to do what's right. Focus on the facts. Do not listen to all of the reasons why you should settle a bullshit case. Oh, it's going to cost you more. It's cheaper to. Those are all the wrong reasons, right? When your insurance company comes to you and starts trying to talk you into why it's a good idea, that's the lawyer's job, right? Not your insurance company's job. And most of the time, I'm the guy saying, look, it's my job to help you get over Mount Everest. You're a novice. You've never been over Mount Everest before. And that's where, the lawyers and everybody's going to be scaring you. And if it's a shitty case, I'm going to be moving in the settlement direction too. But if the facts are in your favor, you need to be more committed than any plaintiff attorney on the planet when the facts are in their favor. And, I do believe over the last 40 years, what I've seen is the plaintiff's lawyers winning the battle, right? They've leveraged everything. And as an industry, we've really fueled it. I'm insuring guys now that, they have $100 million limit. I'm like, what are you doing with $100 million limit? And you know what their answer is? It was cheap, right? They got 25 million limit for like 10 grand. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty hard to resist when you're a buyer, right? Especially when you got a board and the bigger you get and, when it's cheap. Now, these guys are saying, I can't even get 10 and my board wants me to get 40 that I had last year. And it's like, you can get there, but it's not going to be cheap anymore.
Well, let me throw some hypos at you that I'm hoping are not crazy, hard to answer, but just some generic ones. You have a great liability case, but and that's provable by facts, but a really bad damages case. Do you always try those?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that in today's market, you're going to overpay them if you don't, because of how far the pendulum's out of whack, right? If we'd have done our job for, the last 20 years, then maybe the numbers that people are seeking would be more in line with what reality should be. But, again, when some guy that had a $10 million limit has been oversold and now has a $40 million limit because it's cheap, the plaintiff's lawyers, when you're focused on settling, it doesn't matter who's at fault. It matters more the injury and the limits available, right? Even if you're not at fault, the injury matters more. And, when I talk to plaintiff's attorneys, that's what they tell me we do wrong, is we focus on the hocus pocus and the sky is falling and you could lose and you never know what a jury, you don't want to waste the time in court when you could be running your business. And, all of those are certainly valid reasons, but in the long run, it is going to cost, good people way more money to not invest their time and effort in fighting frivolous litigation.
Have you ever been burned by that, where you tried a case with really great liability, really sucky damages and got hit? And then you maybe second guessed yourself to say, maybe in retrospect, I should have settled that one.
Well, what I like to say is, insurance companies don't don't really like using appellate courts. When you want them to appeal something, they say, oh, we got to post a bond and, we could lose. It's like, well, that's your job, right? To me, that's your job. No. So, the worst case I ever lost was in Hawaii, downhill bicycle tour. Guy had a shirt on, said, no guts, no glory. And, he's told at the beginning, do not pass other people, stay in single file, bike guide in front, bike guide in back, van, if you want to get in it and ride, So he goes flying by everybody, can't make the turn, right off the cliff.
Oh.
So, they sue. Insured wants to fight. We want to fight. It's no guts, no glory again. To me, he got what he wanted. So he, if you've ever been in trial, they win, and he expects Bob Barker to walk out with his check, right? Well, that's when the pendulum kind of swings. Now the plaintiff's attorney's got a problem because, his client ain't going to walk out of there with any money, right? That was D-Day. This client has been waiting and waiting and waiting, and this is his day in court. And, we're appealing. So within 90 days, we settled that case for $90,000. Because it was
a lot less than what you got hit for, I assume.
Yeah, it was $1.2 million jury award. So, because the insured wanted us to fight, there was no bad faith. We appealed and settled it within 90 days. So, and again, bad faith is what everybody's afraid of. And my comfort level with that is I know my insureds and I listen to my insureds. So all the way through this, it's again like going over Mount Everest. It's a journey, and things happen in people's lives, right? You could have somebody that's really, really committed to fight, and then their son dies, and they're not so much committed to fight anymore. Or they're ready to sell the business, or so there are no guarantees, but I guarantee you that you're going to have better outcomes with good people. Right? With people who come out from behind the curtain. And to me, insurance underwriters and insurance claims people, they hide behind the curtain all the time. They don't want to be the guy that comes out. It's like banks, right? You get denied a bank loan, and some guy comes out and tells you, yeah, the underwriters or the loan committee said no. And it's like, well, can I talk to him? Oh, no. No, you can't talk to them. Well, why not, right? I think that's disingenuous, and I think that's, why we and banks are really in trouble as industries is because it's cookie cutter, right? We're not cookie cutters anymore. The world is getting less and less cookie cutter. Everybody needs customization, and the insurance world isn't into customization. It's into, if you fit the box, you get in. If you don't, and many people get in the box, and the minute you have a claim, you're now out. And I would say, what's up with that? Well, we underwrote this planning that they wouldn't have claims. So when they have claims, we cancel them. And I always say, okay, when you take somebody's money, and you're doing that because they could have claims, it sounds like to me you should tell them what your expectation is, right? Because my people, I expect they're going to have claims. Or why would they be buying insurance, right? That's kind of the game here. And so when people, are underwriting and trying to pick the one guy that's not going to have a claim, that's disingenuous to the buyer because they know they can have a claim. And as an insurance guy, you're betting low, right? You're way too cheap if that's your plan, and that's why we're all where we're at.
Well, I think, and I just pull out a little nugget of what you just said. My experience with people on the claims adjuster side, the ones that do it really well, have that kind of mentality. They have a customer service mentality that they really do get in front of the claim. They really know the insured. Some of my adjusters go yearly to visit the big ones, and there's a rapport and a relationship there that they actually legitimately care about. That sounds like you guys do that, but how do you do that if you have tens of thousands of insureds? It's just something you say as a cultural thing? How does that happen at Prime?
Well, so I think we're the only insurance company on the planet that will not give an insurance quote until we talked to the insured on the phone, right? And when we started doing that, 10 years ago, we tried 20, but, obviously it's not a popular thing. But, again, if I'm going to execute the way I have to be dealing with customers face to face. And, my favorite saying now to the producers is, look, they're your client, right? You got all these markets, you got their homeowners, their auto, their work comp, but when I issue them a policy to cover the specialty stuff they do or the solutions they need, they're my insured and I'm their insurance company. That's the contract. That's the relationship. And good producers enhance that and help that. If I want to go meet with them, they help me set up the meeting. The bad ones, they kind of run interference, right? Because when I call, first person they're going to call is the agent. Hey, why is the insurance company calling me? What do they want to do, right? And in my world, I tell them, you should have already called them and told them, Prime's going to be calling you. Expect a call. They're great people. They want to be good partners. So, I think you have to actually execute, right? On the underwriting side, there isn't a risk I can't price or underwrite the same day, right? Like in the next 10 minutes, as long as I can talk to the insured. If you won't let me talk to the insured, I'm not going to waste my time.
Yeah. Are there any industries or risks that you won't underwrite? Or is everything fair game?
No, again, I think, I don't insure stupid and I don't compete with stupid. So, it isn't the class of business. And Gen Re, when they first started reinsuring me back in the 90s, 95, they wouldn't do tow trucks and auto repo. And, we did a lot of towing and auto repo. And I said, why won't you do it? And they said, oh, we got killed. So then fast forward 3 years later, and I've been writing towing and repo without their help. And, I'm making money. And so they finally say, okay, we'll take that, right? But the mentality of insurance people is it's a class of business. And I say it's a class of people.
So there's people that you'll get off the phone with and say, like, we're not going to underwrite that.
Yeah.
Okay. It's the person.
People who, again, they're not looking for a partner. They're looking for stupid. I had one guy, I asked him one question, and he said, I don't want to answer any questions. I just want to buy insurance. And I said, well, you ain't buying it here, because I need to ask questions. I need to feel comfortable because that's what lawyers are going to do down the road. And he had a $4 million claim, right? And so to me, when somebody comes to me with a claim, I think opportunity if they're a good person. I think, I know how insurance goes. Probably wasn't handled right. They probably maybe didn't understand the risk. It was probably priced too cheap. Lots of stuff go into bad expectations and a bad result. But, when you meet good people and I see loss runs, I know that I could have done better than that with a cooperative person. With an uncooperative person, you can't do any better.
Well, let's talk about, let me just pivot a little bit and talk about venues. Us lawyers love to put things in good venues, bad venues, and anything in between. And I know a lot of insurance companies will value a case depending on the venue that you're in. Do you do any of that? Does that come into your analysis of what cases you should settle versus what cases you should try?
I would say that, again, we're certainly aware of the venue argument and the, legal hellholes. And, those are other people's experiences, right? So, I looked at the legal hellhole list this year. And my legal hellhole changes every year based on what's going on at the moment. So I've heard, Miami-Dade, Chicago, Illinois, New York, all of the Texas border country, those are some of my biggest successes. So because, again, that's Chicken Little, the sky is falling, I don't believe in that. And I can tell you that I've never seen Arizona on anybody's legal hellhole list. But I'm telling you, it is one of the worst states for insurance.
Really?
Yeah, it's got this Damron law. Have you heard of
No.
the Damron? Yeah, you don't want it. It makes no sense. It's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. And, I'm involved in a big case, and, again, I think I'm winning. And so we'll see how it works out. But, they're all telling me, oh, you're going to spend the way that I, again, all of this is done on fear, and sky is falling. And, when the facts are in my favor, in a couple of cases recently, everybody's, concerned about all the money we're going to spend. And this is going on in 3 cases. I look at everybody and I say, that's my job. I'm not going to stop spending money because you guys are worried about it. My job is to see this thing through because we're right and they're wrong. And I'll spend as much money as it takes. One of my cases is with the state of Mississippi on Katrina claims. You heard about this piece of crap?
I haven't heard about yours, but I've heard of the Katrina claims.
Yeah, well, the Jim Hood, who was the attorney general at the time of Katrina, was running for governor. And so this was his, move, I guess, to get elected governor. Thank goodness he wasn't elected governor. But the case still goes on. And, they sued me we had 1,200 claims. They said 86 or so of them were improperly handled. So, they wanted me to just pay 10 cents on the dollar. Now they'll take 5 cents on the dollar. But, I've spent a lot of money. I'm never paying them. I will never pay them 1 penny. I will fight until I go broke because they're wrong. This is, political, whatever you want to call it. Jim Hood trying to get elected as governor. And again, thank goodness he didn't. But, you're not helping the homeowners in Florida or in Mississippi suing every insurance company there. And the insurance companies who have all settled except for me, how do they think they're helping? Right? Because what's going to happen next storm?
Yeah, listen, I'm with you, but I think a lot of them do look at it as a business decision, I mean, and you
they have a bunch of board members sitting around the table that are all, making decisions for the wrong reasons, right? If they had their own money in the game and they understood the game, it's like letting somebody move the goalposts or, only playing within the hash marks on football, or, you got to use the whole field. You got to use appellate courts. You got to focus on the facts, not let the other side dictate the hash marks, dictate, everything. And then what do? We offer them more higher limits cheaply. So now everybody thinks, they should have all of this coverage out there. When, again, to me, insurance is the right tool for the job. My favorite saying now to insureds, when they start getting real confused, I say, okay, let's pretend like you don't have insurance. That's a pretty good place to start, right? So an employee sues you for discrimination and you don't discriminate. What are you going to do? You're not going to pay that claim. Well, now you buy insurance and, this isn't why do you want to be distracted by this? You could lose, we're just going to pay it. Oh, okay, just pay it. Well, then guess what you get? You get 3 more, 10 more, So again, insurance is a tool that if used improperly or purchased improperly, or you have no strategy, you're just buying a bunch of policies that are going to work against each other. It's a really, really dangerous thing to be buying insurance. And one of the things that, kind of proves that is, how many people want to go self-insured now and form their own captive? My phone is ringing off the hook. And you know what I tell people? That's the last thing you want to do. Because all you're going to do is spend more money and end up in the same place.
You think it's cheaper to have $1 policies over an SIR or being in a captive or self-insured for them?
Well, I mean, I just live with my own experiences. When I was dumb and stupid, I had to buy excess of loss reinsurance, which is like a deductible or an SIR. right? You know what people say when they have a deductible or SIR?
What?
It's, you pay every claim for my deductible or my SIR, right? So the insurers just run to that number, right? And then same on the settlement. You know, if you have 500 million, guess what everything settles for? 500 million, right? Everybody knows the playing field. You know, all the lawyers get to know exactly what's going on and what the play. It's a very slow, arduous, and that's part of it. They want to wear you out. You know, I was here with a new lawyer in this case in Utah. And I'd never met him before. And he said, man, I wish I'd have known you last week. He said, I had a case. You know, we'd made an offer. And, you know, it was a good offer based on the facts. They should have taken it. They didn't. We're halfway through trial. We're winning. And the guy just wants to go home. He just wants to pay more to go home. Right. And so, you know, that's a variable that, you know, I think hopefully my relationship would be able to reel him in and say, hey, dude, you know, hang out for a couple more days. We're winning. This will be okay. And, you know, the other side, you know it, they sense the momentum. It's almost like a basketball game. So, you know, you probably, you know, at some point they're probably going to come to you with a better offer than you offered them before. And, you know, again, one of my biggest challenges, you know, when I learned this long time ago, was when some guy would die of a heart attack in a raft, and, you know, then the family sues you for $1 million. And I was always like, he could have died at home in his lazy boy, right? He that's where he wanted to be. But again, you're not dealing with him. You're not dealing with his kids or, you know, somebody who didn't want to go on the raft trip. And so it's a dynamic. But, you know, I would always pay out of pockets. Right? I'm always real reasonable. No, don't want this to be a hardship. You know, we do it all the time. Avalanche death cases, funeral costs, you know, whatever. But you're going at them and you're able to do it. Well, when they start out unreasonable, right, at $1 million, and you talk your insured, and we got to fight this. We got to fight this. We got to fight this. 3 years later, they'll settle for 20 grand. Guess what your insured wants to do? Fight. He doesn't want you to pay $1. And it's like, oh, okay, you know, there is a game here, right? And when you get to an out-of-pocket deal, and, you know, my exception to that, and I make a point of this when we go to mediation, settlement conferences, whatever, you know, we're making our best offer, but if you waste our time and make us spend more money, we're now investing, and we're never going to make a better offer than today. And, you know, they have to believe that. You know, I think, again, down in Florida on nursing homes, they know we'll go to court. Prime, you know, the weak sister is the insured. You know, can they get the insured to send us the settle letter? And so it's a dance with your own insured.
Well, what about all of the talk lately about nuclear verdicts? I know the answer to your question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. All the issues with nuclear verdicts, social inflation, you know, it's very much a trendy topic to talk about. Does it impact your decisions? Are you tracking any data as far as Prime being hit with nuclear verdicts or other insurance companies being hit with nuclear verdicts?
Well, I mean, we certainly hear, and I have my whole life heard, you know, what I call the propaganda. You know, the girl who spelt McDonald's coffee on her crotch and got all this money, right? She never got any money. So, you know, a lot of this stuff is just, you know, propaganda. And, you know, I don't know about other people's cases. That's what I tell them. It's like, you know, it's really hard for me to say because you don't know all the intricate moves and different turns in the road that you could have made that you didn't make. You only know your own cases. But, you know, my experience is I started in this business almost 40 years ago, you know, and I've always been involved in underwriting and claims. In 95, I piled up what little pile of money I had, started my own insurance company, and since then I've been growing it. And today, my results are pretty damn good. They're as good as anybody I know. And I don't experience any of that, right? I hear all of it, you know, the social engineering, the awards, and what I see is us paying higher amounts because we provided higher limits and they're bad injury cases. So, I'm not arguing with anybody else's results, but if you have a good relationship with your insured and they report stuff to you and you can manage it from an offensive position instead of a defensive position, no, not affecting me, right? Yeah. The guys who are saying that are the guys with 150% combined ratio over in London, saying, oh, the U.S. is out of control, social engineering, more auto accidents, more claims. I'm like, yeah, there's more people. There's more cars. You're getting more premium, Now, if you're not getting enough to start with, yeah, you're in big trouble, and then you got to start grasping for reasons why it's spinning out of control. But, again, that's not something that, showed up just like in a flash. All of this stuff like oozes over time, right? And we have the opportunity to help manage that with our partners. And again, I think it's the best legal system in the world. And, we've dropped our weapons and we're running for the hills. That's what insurance guys do. And that's why, Disneyland's self-insured and a lot of other big companies are self-insured, doctors, hospitals, they seem to be doing better than the insurance experts.
Well, it's funny because Disneyland, when they had that toddler who got killed by that alligator, there was no suit. Right. Because Disney has that same philosophy, right? There's a customer service angle and I don't know anything about it, but only what I read in the news. But that's what struck me is there was no suit from that. Right. So,
well, they go at it, right? I tell my insureds and all my people, when we run somebody off the road, and they're not injured or whatever, we want to call them up and we want to, say, look, we ran you off the road. We're sorry about that. Do you need a car? Do you have kids to get to the school? What's your plan? Are you okay? And I call it the Disneyland approach. You care, right?
You actually care.
At the same time you're caring, you give them a path to you, right? In the old insurance world, claim happens, doesn't get reported, insurance company gets a lawsuit, right? That's their first notice of it. How can you have no ability to be proactive at that point. And it really isn't the insurance company that should be calling these people anyway. It's the business. Again, if you didn't have any insurance and somebody slipped in your store, you would take care of them. You should, right? You should take them and you should know what the injury is. You don't just let them drive off in their own car and not worry about it, right? But when you call them up the day before, and I do believe there's an opportunity for every claim for us to actually impress people, because the bar is so low, right? What we get is a demand from a lawyer, right? What I wanted, if they have a lawyer, I want to be making offers to them first. I don't want to be waiting for the policy limit demand. And, initially, again, doctor, passed away backcountry skiing here in the Wasatch. And within 3 months, we had agreed to settle it for 20 grand. New York City doctor. And, when we sent the release to the family and, we had the guide stay in touch with the family, go to the funeral, work it like you should. And, we sent the release for 20 and the sister said, oh, my brother's sister's lawyer's husband, lawyer or something, we want him to review it. We said, okay, you're transparent. You can't stop people from going to an attorney, but I guarantee you the more you try, the more they're going to want to. So the more you just say, hey, whatever, we're good. We'll share whatever. We're transparent. So he wanted 60, right? Again, I would have thought most lawyers I deal with wanted $1 million.
Yeah.
So 60 was a pretty good deal, right? But we weren't just going to pay 60 because he said that, right? We said, well, we've already agreed to 20. Where'd you coming up with 60? Right. So after a week, we settled for 30. So, but that's the way that it should go. Now, one of the things that I think as an industry, we should be doing, and I've talked to the associations about it, they're not going to, so I'm going to start myself, is like public service ads or something that goes against, I was telling everybody, look, the plaintiff's attorneys you really have to worry about aren't the ones advertising on TV, right? The really good ones, they don't want to be on TV, right? So
they don't want to ruin their reputation.
Right. Yeah. And the good ones actually are becoming some of my better lawyers because they don't want to be tarred and feathered with that, plaintiff's lawyer on TV kind of image, right? It's like I don't take cases like that. I take real cases where I'm fighting for my client, just like you are. So I like those guys, and they're the ones who tell you focus on the facts. Focus on the facts, right? So that to me is, again, the thing that we need to do to represent our clients the same way they do. It's really pushing as hard as the other side is to get to the middle where it's fair. So
well, that leads me right into my next series of questions, which is defense lawyers. I'm sure you have thoughts on what makes good ones and what makes bad ones. Can you enlighten us, help us out? What can we be doing that you think is spot on what we should be doing? And what are the things that we should not be doing?
Well, for me, I think that fundamentally, I want an attorney that works with us in a way that makes sense. So, we have a case in New York. It's an action over case. Guy died. So we're working with the insured and the lawyers involved. And I was really impressed by this lawyer because as I grow my own company, I'm hiring a lot more lawyers and a lot more claims people. And in our world, in-house lawyers and claims people, they like assigning their work out, right? And I think that's an art too, right? So most lawyers, they don't want the insurance company calling the plaintiff's lawyer and negotiating. They want to do that, right? I think that's a mistake, right? And I've always felt that, but it's become very clear to me recently because of this case in New York where, very high-powered lawyer there, very good. And he basically brought it to my attention. He said, your claims guy keeps calling me, telling me to call the plaintiff's lawyer. And I keep telling him, you call, it's better strategy, right? When a lawyer talks to me about strategy like that and things that make sense, do I want my insured calling their client, trying to work out an accident? Or do I want to pick up the phone and say, I'm with Prime Insurance Company. I'm your, the guy who hurt you, I'm his insurance company. That's not the right way to approach it. And so you go one step further, when the insurance company can negotiate with the plaintiff's attorney, they should be negotiating with the help of the local lawyer that we're hiring. But I would tell you 99% of lawyers don't want that, right? They want as many billable hours as they can get. And I tell all the lawyers, I'm like, look, you guys, every business is a marathon, right? It's not sprints. And most of the lawyers I know want, they want the big case. So if I call them on this avalanche death case, most of them are going to screw it up and fight with me. They're not going to give me the chance to settle it for the 30 grand I did, right? And I tell them, look, work with me, right? Let me execute where I can. And where I need you, the big gunslinger, to come in, then I pull you in. There'll be plenty of those cases, right? But if you force every case to what, you want, then that's not going to be a relationship that's going to survive my time frame or the way I want to work. So, the lawyers that I work best with, I've worked with forever. And they understand that, there's certain things we can do better initially, in an effort to settle claims more efficiently than they can. And, so that
you like a collaborative environment. You like a collaborative relationship.
Right. And, I've had lawyers tell me, after you hire them, and this was before I was the insurance company. This is when I was an underwriter working outside in an MGA. They basically want to do the whole thing and want us to stay out of it. And they basically say, you're the insurance company, you're paying our bill. We represent the insured. You don't tell us what to do. And I told them, I said, to me, that's kind of discounting our value, if any. I mean, we may not add any value, but in some cases, you should at least be open to it, right? But to me, that, again, those are lawyers I don't even try and work with, because I can see that, they want the whole job and nothing but the whole job, right? And so that's to maximize their income and, their power. And to me, it's an art, right? I work with a lot of good lawyers, and the best ones, we're working for the common good of our insured to get the best result. And there's a lot of ways to do that, and each case is unique.
Do you want your lawyers to be watching the purse, how much they're spending, or do you just want them to be so focused on developing the facts and the injuries and the strategy?
Well, I definitely want them to be interested in the costs, right? One of the things that we've said, I mean, a lot of, like London used to ask us, give us a budget and give us a reserve. And, that's kind of an odd question to ask somebody. Aren't you in this business? Can't you set your own reserves and set your own budget? And so to me, that again, that's not a good thing. But I can tell you when I've decided the facts, right? And we're all in defending, this is hocus pocus and the facts are in our favor. No, I don't want you watching the budget. I don't watch the budget, right? There's a lawyer in New York City, I hire $1,200 an hour, and all the other lawyers, whine and complain. And obviously, I hire them for very short periods of time, right? And obviously, most of these cases, when you get involved in this type of litigation, it's in 3 or 4 states, right? So he's collaborating with all these other lawyers, and we win in New York. He wants to stay involved, right? And I have to cut him off and say, Bob, or whatever his name is, I like you, but I can't afford you when I don't need you, right? I'm done, right? We won in New York. Now we're back in Arizona or Utah or wherever we're at. And there will be more work for him. Right? I'm not backing away in any state, and we're not afraid of any state. Every state's different. Every state has different laws. Like I said earlier, I'm adjusting my rates up for the Arizona factor, the Dameron effect. But the lawyers have created that down there. It's just like the Stowers cases in Texas, and every state has their little nuanced cases that they like to scare you with. But there's good lawyers in every state that know how to fight back. You just have to, be a little bit more selective.
Are you writing for any of the more trendy risks or industries like the gig economy or like the urban air mobility, coronavirus, anything like that? Are you seeing?
Well, we're seeing, a lot of new stuff. One of the newest things is that, I don't know if you've heard about it or not, but it's interesting to me, is that Aspen Insurance is actually financing plaintiffs' lawyers' cases.
I saw something like this the other day. I didn't get my head wrapped around it. What's going on with that?
Well, basically, and I've been talking to some of those. We have quoted some of the event stuff within the last week with the the coronavirus, and it's a little bit late to be buying it. Actually, should have bought it a year ago if you were going to buy it. But if you buy it now, it's going to be real expensive. But before the coronavirus, what were we talking? Oh, the legal funding. Yeah. So, these lawyers, the plaintiffs' law firms, they have lines of credits with banks. And so, they're spending their own money. I had one guy tell me that if he has an injured customer and he can't afford the medical, he'll finance the medical. He'll pay the $100,000 surgery and he can get $400,000. It doesn't really matter whether they're at fault or not at fault. In fact, the guy was in an accident, the surgery's conducted, and then, the medical bills drive the lawsuit. And I'm sitting there thinking, not with me. I'm not gonna be paying you that just because I'm gonna put you through a lot of pain to get that money. So, all of these guys are thinking about it, and my own personal take on it is that the plaintiffs' lawyers are pretty far out there on the limb. I mean, they don't lack imagination, right? I think I call them legal terrorists because they have, they're just, I got $3 million on the last one, and I get 6 on this one. It has nothing to do with the facts. It has to do with the injury and intimidation. And so, keeping that, under control is critical.
Yeah, when I read that article, I was like, insurance companies are funding. That's what it seemed like me. They're funding the litigation the litigation management, the litigation funding.
They have some model or some actuary who's told them they can make money on this, and I think it's a train wreck. It'll be great for us from our industry because what it's going to do is push the pendulum further out. And so a lawyer that now has to manage his own line of credit is going to get funding from other people who don't understand what types of risks he's taken. And, dealing in what I deal with, I can see, and you can buy it on an individual case-by-case basis. And so the lawyer's coming at me wanting me to write the coverage. I told him, I says, look, the only way this would make sense if it did, would be to underwrite the whole law firm. I got to take a piece of all your cases because I'm not going to let you cherry pick the good. I'm keeping the good ones for me, and I'll let you finance my crappy ones. But, I know enough about people that if you did that, they would set up another law office down the road, and all the good cases would be in that office, and they'd be selling you all their crap cases. So
they would creatively work around it somehow.
That's what State Farm agents do right now because, they can't sell anything but State Farm. So their wife goes next door and opens up an independent agent. And, people are going to find a way to survive. And you can think you're managing them. But in the long run, I think, this is all going to hurt the plaintiff's bar. I mean, everything kind of swings, back and forth. And, I think, right now, insurance companies are hated more than lawyers because we don't manage our clients' expectations like lawyers do. Lawyers do a very good job of managing expectations, and insurance companies don't. They take your money and then they always disappoint, right? So the goal I have as a company is to make sure that if we take your money, as our buyer, you have an understanding of what success is. What at the end of the relationship, in the worst case scenario, what you'll have, what you'll be, and where we'll be sitting. And nobody ever wants to talk about that. So,
well, and also I think with, during the crash and all the stuff with AIG, really left people with a sour taste. And I know it's been a while, but it's still, I think you still have that mentality with insurance companies. So I'm with you on that. I know I'm running short on your time, so I just a couple more questions for you. One, what do you think of AI in the insurance industry? Are you guys using it at all? Are you asking your lawyers to use it? Or are you still just old-fashioned research and experience?
Well, I think that my impression of, AI, all of the insurtech and fintech, and, I think that there's applications and benefits to be had there, but I think 90% of it is off the mark, right? So, to me, what I want, if I insure your home, I want you to walk around your home with your iPhone or your iPad, and I want I want video of the whole entire inside, and I want video of the whole entire outside for underwriting, right? And if you got piles of junk stacked up around your house, I'm going to want you to move it before I insure it. So that's the type of technology benefits. Everybody thinks way beyond that, right? That's way too easy. These black boxes and build, they all want to be hired to build $1 million system, right? And my impression is most of the InsurTech stuff that's going on, it's like everything else today, technology is great, but most people waste their time and money. I have my own system. I've never bought anybody else's. I have a big IT department. I spend a lot of money, but guess what? My system works and it works the way I want it to. I got other people wanting to buy it from me, and I'm like, look, I'm not selling when an insurance company starts selling its software and that becomes their business, I'd say run away from them as an insurance company. When you start saying, oh, we can make money doing this, you're probably not a very good insurance company anymore. So, our systems are made to service the client, the producers. You change a vehicle, it's all done. I can quote a risk same day, issue the policy same day, get all the certificates out, but I'm not building stuff for other people to use. I'm building my own system, which my customers and my producers can access, and it makes all our life easier. So, it's working well. And, AI, I had an experience, I can't remember. It was a aircraft tug, and it said, the smarter people than us aren't here right now, but they'll call you back shortly, and so, we, after hours, we have a call service, and if, people have an emergency, they get in touch with a lawyer, right? We're on the scene. And so, AI to me, I'm sure someday it'll get there. We insured a lot of the people testing driverless cars and trucks in California and stuff. I heard one guy with KPMG say, oh yeah, Moore's Law, everything, technology advancing, insurance agents are going to go away, no commissions, there'll be no auto accidents. He said, water will be free. I said, I don't know where you're living, but everything I know, all this intelligent stuff, all the technology, it's going to make shit worse. It ain't going to make it better. Every car that crashes now, it's more expensive to fix. And you know what? When they don't fix it right, they get their buddy stick the bumper back on there and the sensors aren't working right. It's going to just create more litigation, for everybody.
Well, let me just wrap up with two final questions. One, you travel, or maybe three. You travel all over the place. What is your favorite place to visit? Did I stump you?
Yeah, no, I go lots of places, but I'm always working. So people always tell me, you need to slow down and enjoy it. And I says, hey, I'm living my dream. Right. So yeah, I'm busy. But my favorite place is probably in San Diego. We go to WISA, which is the Wholesalers Association. It's the combination of AAMGA and NAPSLO. But they have their annual convention in San Diego, and right there at the convention center, and we rent this yacht, and we all stay on the yacht and have our meetings on the yacht. So on an annual basis, that's the thing I look forward to the most.
That's awesome. That sounds nice, at least.
Yeah.
What about, and I know you're a helicopter pilot, so we'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this. Have you seen the suit filed by Kobe Bryant's wife? Have you looked at that yet?
Well, I saw that a suit had been filed. I haven't looked at it yet. I'll be more interested in what the reports say actually happened. But, being a helicopter pilot, I've flown all over the country, in bad weather. And, my thought is, and what I was taught when you're a pilot is, accidents don't happen because of one mistake. There's actually a chain of things that, happen for an accident to occur. So, he should have never taken off initially, shouldn't have requested special VFR, but, I've done it. You take off, then you go circle for 15 minutes, Could have landed, then gone back. Then they give you clearance to go through that airspace, and you get up towards the pass where you can't see. And I've been there a lot. You land right there.
Yeah.
Or go turn around and go back and say, I would have landed right there and told Colby, call an Uber.
Yeah.
Right? I can't see. So birds don't fly in clouds. You know why?
Why?
Because they crash. They lose their equilibrium too. They, and the aircraft was instrument rated, the pilot was instrument rated. But, if you don't do it all the time and you just bust into the clouds, and, I don't know what happened to him. I know that when he hit the ground, he was going like 187 miles an hour or 187 knots, which is faster than the cruising speed of that helicopter, which means he's descending. And so, again, to me, sad event. I started flying 15 years ago. Started, flying in helicopters when I was 21, helicopter skiing with the guys I insured, and got the bug to fly a helicopter. Yeah, it's scary. When you're learning to fly any aircraft, most people get scared at the time they're learning and say, I'm not doing that. I don't want to die, right? And then if you get over that initial fear and get comfortable, I wouldn't own it if I wasn't very comfortable with being able to fly it safely. But when you fly into the clouds, that's not recommended procedure. And so it's a sad event. I would have landed, I'd have turned around. To me, it was totally avoidable unless there's something with the aircraft that went wrong. But if that was true, it would have gone wrong before he was in the clouds in most cases.
Well, it'll be interesting. Maybe I'll have to have you back on when the findings come out, or maybe we can just chat about it. It's certainly a sad situation. I represent some aviation vendors and airlines, and when this happened, it was definitely talked about, obviously, and all of them said the same thing. It's just a sad situation. So
one of my supporters in London, who does a lot of aircraft, he was just over here. He said, I told you should sell that damn aircraft, and I says, every time a bad accident happens, that's what people say. But, there's an accident on the freeway. So you're going to go sell your car? Yeah. It's you make decisions. And again, if I couldn't own the helicopter and operate it safely and maintain it, I'd sell it. Right. And that's my concern with most aircraft is they're not maintained properly. And, the people flying them probably, could have more experience. But obviously all the commercial guys, they meet all the standards. But when you're talking about private guys out there flying around and, they buy an aircraft they can't afford anymore, so they start trying to get their buddy to fly it, and it gets worse and worse with every gyration of trying to, afford an aircraft because it's people's dream, right? It's cool, but it's like a lot of other things. If you can't do it right, it's way too much risk.
I am with you. Well, listen, my last question, if you were to go back 40 years, would you change anything?
Yeah, I would have worked harder, so I would have made the Olympic hockey team, and then I'd be a professional hockey player. Maybe. No.
Maybe you been part of the miracle story. You could have done that. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on, give us insight. It's so valuable for us to be able to just chat about what you think about things. And I appreciate your time today. I hope you come back on. Maybe we can figure out something to talk about. So.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And let me know if I can ever help you out in any way. Thanks.
I will. Thank you very much. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us on The Defense Never Rests. Until next time, we'll see you then. Bye.